Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. George?
Lionel?
George?
Lionel?
George! You got
Lionel.
Yeah. You know what? It's another exciting episode. It's another exciting episode of A Modeler's Life. This is one of those episodes. It's a numbered one. I'm guessing this is somewhere in the 160s. Maybe mid to high 160s.
Are we there already?
Well, today we just, this is, we have a few months ahead. Today I just finished posting up Scott Lister, which was episode 157. Then we got to go on to, I'm guessing we're probably 4 months out till our guest that we have tonight will be broadcast. So 157 times 8. So carry the 1.
Add the 2.
Yeah, I think it's 166.
Wow. Look how far we've come.
Or 165 or somewhere in the mid 160s. And did you ever watch the Beverly Hillbillies?
I did.
All right. So you know about Jethro and his ciphering.
Yes.
Okay. What are you doing? Well, I hear you typing. You're like you know what? I'm really annoyed because being that I'm a couple of years older than you, a couple of years older.
Just one or two.
Just one or two. Typing was not mandatory when I went to school. Typing actually, if you had a half a brain in your head, you took typing or home ec because then you got to hang out with all the girls. But there was only one or two of us boys that was smart enough to do that, and I wasn't one of them.
You know what's funny? I was horrible at typing as a child.
Oh, really?
Horrible. I was awful. I was horrible because I couldn't type and look at the screen at the same time. I had to look at the keyboard, and I typed really slowly. And my teachers always said that was wrong.
Yeah.
So it's only through like years of having to use a computer for virtually everything that I've actually gotten better at doing it.
I'm a 2-finger banger. I actually can incorporate my thumbs now a little bit. But I think I can type about 30 words a minute with 2 fingers.
Well, that's nothing to sneeze at. Yeah.
But it's arduous. It's arduous. However, my new spiffy laptop that I got, that is a super duper laptop. This is like buying a car. Whatever they were selling, I was buying. And
right.
It has this awesome dictating to it. I mean, I sit here, the computer's literally 3 feet from me, the laptop, because I have a big screen that I look at. So it's sitting over to the side and I can just talk like this and it will almost record verbatim what I say.
Yeah. The text to speech now, or the Google assistants or whatever they're called, like the typing assistants are really something now.
I know. This is on my MacBook Pro, my little 13-inch one, because I got a smaller one for, so anyways, and you know what? This is going to be really exciting. This is going to be really exciting for you.
I'm already excited.
Yeah, because tonight we're going to talk, or today, depending where you are. I mean, if you're Nick Santo and you're walking and you're listening to this in the morning, then it's this morning we're going to talk to. If you're Tom Jacobs wheeling around Pennsylvania making insurance deals, it could be any time of day. But today we're going to talk to a fella. His name is Emory Lehman. I believe it's the third. And he is a locomotive engineer for the BNSF, the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe.
Well, hey, all right. We know a couple people that work for the BNSF now.
That's right. We know Matt Martin. And now we know...
We're about to know Emory.
Yeah, now we're about to know Emory. So can you run down to the green room and get him out?
I certainly can. Hey, Emory. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
You didn't eat the green shrimp, did you?
No.
Okay, good. All right, come on back with me to the studio.
All right, I'm following right behind you.
Watch the door. You're very light on your feet, George.
I move quickly.
You sound
Well,
like
you wouldn't know by looking at me, but
yeah. Well, I've looked at. Hey, that's what we got to talk about on the next fans or something. Is we spent a whole afternoon hanging out doing rail fanning and visiting Lex Parker.
that was a really good time.
It was. We had good time. All right, Emory,
Yes, sir.
you're up, buddy. So how did you discover the podcast?
How did I discover the podcast? I think it was when what was I doing it? I remember what it was. It was when I was watching The Dude, and I saw all y'all on there, and so I had to investigate to see what was going on, what y'all were doing, and it came to the point where I really enjoyed listening to what was going on.
All right, cool. And so were you like Rod Diary where, you almost turned it off, but he actually did turn it off.
Well, no, not really. I was very interested in just hearing what was going on in the hobby, and I was like, hey, this actually sounds pretty interesting. It does give me something to do when I am riding in a van between the train and where I need to go, so I can actually keep myself somewhat entertained.
Yeah. So how many guys will there usually be in the van?
Just myself and my conductor and the driver.
Okay. We'll get to that. We'll get back to that.
Right.
We'll cover that subject as we go along. And George, of course, jump in and ask any questions that you want as we go along.
Sounds like a plan.
So you're a model railroader. Are you a lifelong model railroader?
Yes. I started when I was a kid. My father got me into it when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And he built our first 4x8 layout with the figure 8 thing with the Tyco track and a few engine and a few cars, and progressed from that. We went to, he then in the bedroom I was in, I think it was a 14 by 12 bedroom. He built a layout that was above my bed so I could sleep underneath it, and just had just enough room to get through the door.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was a big layout.
It was more just like probably 3 sheets of plywood. It wasn't any open grid or anything like that. It had a little switching yard, and it was in a figure 8, and it was double tracked, and it had a couple sidings.
I got a really interesting question for you. Don't let me forget.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you now.
I made a note. Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah,
go for it.
I'm going to go for it right now.
Okay.
No, actually, I think I got to ask you in a little while because this question will fit in better in a little while. Make a note there, George. I got a question.
Okay, I've redone the erasing and I've redone the notes, so we're good to go.
All right. So then, did you go? You went to high school? Were you a model railroader through high school?
Actually, when the computers came out back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, my dad told me I had to make a decision, either model railroad or computers. And they saw that I was really interested in computers. So unfortunately, my father tore down the layout and sold everything, all of it, to purchase my first computer I got.
Okay. Well, how old are you now?
I'm 51.
Okay. So, like in the early 80s, you would have been, don't tell me, let me guess, 11.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, okay. So you're just going into your teenage years, which is when, like you say, when computers really started the personal computers really started to become vogue. I remember my first one was called a data train, and it was all...
That's oddly fitting.
Wow. Yeah, I know, eh? And it was all... I wrote a program in GW Basic, and man, think where we are now. Okay, so... You got interested in computers, so you gave up model railroading. And when do you think you kind of got back into it?
Well, it's always been in my blood, like everybody else. And I kind of watched. I've been to a couple different clubs. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, when I was still living in the Pacific Northwest, I was part of the Burlington Northern Model Railroad Club till it folded. So I can't remember quite when that would have been. That would have been like in the let's see here, 92, 93 time frame, I think.
Okay. And where do you live now? I
live in Central Texas in a town. It's actually a city, Temple, Texas, which is basically between Waco and Austin on I-35.
Okay. I cut you off there because you were telling me how. So you're born and raised in the Northwest then?
Yes.
And then you belong to the Burlington Northern. No, it wasn't the Burlington Northern Model Railroad Club, was it?
Yes, it was the Burlington Northern Model Railroad Club, and I don't remember exactly when it folded. I was there for about 2 years, and then they kind of just folded everything up because, well, basically what it come down to was they didn't have any space. They couldn't rent any space anywhere to put a layout up anymore, so they just disbanded. And I still have a crate out in my garage of a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't even been able to dig through yet that came from the club.
You mean like as in Burlington Northern Railroad, or these guys just called themselves the Burlington Northern?
There was actually employees that worked for the railroad were in that club.
Wow. How cool is that, George? George is on mute. Bruce
No, I'm not. That is so cool that
you were
my
on
jaw
mute.
dropped. I was not. Nope. See, the thing is, Bruce readily admits to it. I never will.
Yeah.
So you never know for sure.
Well, there was quite a pause there. Okay, so there was actually a Burlington, the employees of, okay, I'm going to get to this question now. No, man, it's a really good question. I really feel like I got to save till just the right moment. Okay, so how old were you when you moved to Texas? Well, you know what? I got a feeling this is a really interesting story. So, did you go to a university or college at all?
I took a little bit of college. I took some computer classes in business computer programming at South Seattle Community College. And when I was in the club, there was, like I said, there was a few employees there, and they were talking about, hey, the railroad's hiring. Hey, the railroad's hiring. You need to go down there and talk to them. I was also at the time, I was still in the National Guard, working as a computer operator for the National Guard.
Okay.
And so they said, just go to the unemployment office and apply, and you should get hired. So I went to the unemployment office and talked to the VA, the person. They had a VA representative there, and he said, well, you need to go talk to so-and-so who's the hire or fire for the railroad. So go talk with them. And then first thing basic out of his mouth was, when can you start?
Wow. And what railroad was this for?
That was the BN back then.
Okay. And so how old were you when you got hired on?
What would it be? 24, 25, 26, somewhere right around there.
So you're coming up to being a 30-year guy.
Actually, this is my, come March, will be my 26th year.
Okay. Which would mean you're coming up to being a 30-year guy. Don't be giving me a hard time.
That's my specialty, though.
Okay.
That's my wife.
Did I introduce anybody, George?
I don't think. I think we missed that part.
Boy,
I made a note though.
Yeah.
This is no, but I made an Emory specific note.
Oh, did you?
Yes, and a note says, "Do not introduce the spoon."
Oh yeah, exactly.
And then I put a subnote saying "dangerous combination."
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. New guy. We could replace Spoon on the prototype posse.
Oh, that's a dangerous prospect.
Yeah, we won't do that. We love you, Spoon. Spoon, you're everybody's favorite.
Well, Spoon and I last Wednesday were on until we closed it down at like 1:30, 2 o'clock. So.
You're on the Zoom chat.
Yeah, every Wednesday
yes.
Every Wednesday, for those of you who aren't Patreon members, we have a virtual chat that's available to all the Patreon members of the AML Nation. And so you two guys are on chatting away trains, eh?
Pretty much everything railroad and hobby and who knows what else.
I'm dying to ask you this question.
That is the beauty of the hobby.
I'm dying to ask you this question. George, you're going to have to help me here because I'm dying. I'm going to ask this question. But
I'm right with you, buddy.
But I think we're going to have to ask it again.
Okay.
I think it's going to work around in the conversation. It's going to come around again. So everybody out there, just bear with me when I ask the same question again in about an hour. So, Emory, you seem like a cool guy. I mean, you know, like it's fun to have you as part of the AML Nation. You joined up on Patreon and all that. And I don't exactly know how we got talking, but we did. And then you were on the virtual chat. And I said, man, we got to get this guy on the podcast because you are now a locomotive engineer for the BNSF.
I've been a locomotive engineer for the BNSF for about 24 years.
Yeah. So, but you started out as a conductor.
Well, I actually started out in the roundhouse as a laborer.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. My big question is, what is the thing about trains and model railroading? I think George, aside from the fact that we have to get Hard Part to visit Fast Tracks and have that experience, I think our main goal here is to try to understand what is the fascination with trains. Why do people love trains and love model railroading? Because here's another guy like Spoon, who's his entire life has been trains and model railroading and full-time railroading. So Emory, do you have any insight into what it is about trains that gets people passionate about it?
Me, honestly, I do not know off the top of my head, but I think what it really has to do is the people realize the amount of material we move, the large machines, the mammoth machines, just the nostalgia part of it, I think also.
Yeah, I think there's always a nostalgia, even with modern railroading. There's a nostalgia part too. So, okay, you started out in the roundhouse as a laborer, and you've been with a railroad for 26 years, and you've been a locomotive engineer for 24. So you must have had kind of a pretty quick switch. Like after laborer, what did you do?
Well, yeah. So when I did my first interview process, this was I talked with the HR person and did all the interview and everything. And they asked, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be transportation, or I want to be a conductor, I want to be an engineer. And they say, well, okay, this is the things you have to do. And you're going to be out of town a lot. Well, I was like, well, I just got married and we just had a baby and I don't know if I can be out of town a lot. And they're like, well, that's part of the job. He says, but if you want to stay home, I have another job that you could work on, and that's become a laborer in a roundhouse. I was like, okay, that'll work. So that's how I originally got hired on. So I would work as a laborer. I would basically service locomotives there at Interbay at the roundhouse in Seattle. Worked there for about 3-4 months, and then a position came open down in Tacoma as a hostler / laborer, and worked there for just about 8 months. And talked to my roundhouse supervisor, because I was working third shift all the time. And I said, hey, I really want to get into becoming a conductor. And he says, well, you have to do a craft transfer and do this and do that and do that. And I said, okay, well, let's get it started. So he signed all the paperwork, and a week later, the HR guy calls and says, you're going to conductor's training you're flying out Saturday. And this is like Thursday. I said, okay, where am I going? He says, you're going to Kansas City to go to Choo Choo U. To do my 6 month or 6, yeah, to do my 6 weeks training. It was a 6 weeks training at Choo Choo U.
Choo Choo U. The other guy we forgot to mention, George, when we were talking about Spoon, we can't forget about Serge LaBelle either.
No.
He's a locomotive engineer with the Quebec, North Shore, and Labrador.
Or our good friend Clem Harris.
Who's a locomotive engineer with Amtrak. And, of course, there's Kenny Broomfield, who's a yard guy down there in Mississippi. And who else? And we know there's a bunch of guys. We got to somehow get...
Well, that's just engineers. So like for our prototype guys go, we got a whole bunch more, too.
I know. Luke Lemons is a guy, and there's...
Adam
Pinellas, of course. We can't forget Adam Pinellas, our buddy Adam Pinellas, who's done every job, I think, on the railroad. So what exactly... just so everybody knows, and there'll be people out there that don't know, so we might as well have you explain it because you've actually done it. What is a hostler?
A hostler is actually a locomotive engineer, but he can only move locomotives. He cannot move cars, and he can only work within the terminal. So like where I was working in Tacoma, we had a small little roundhouse and just a single track where we'd fuel and service locomotives, but we are also able to move those locomotives within the yard to either get them off a train or put them on a train.
So how long did it take? Did it take for them to... for you to learn to become capable of operating a locomotive in the yard?
When I was there in Tacoma, it took about a week. They said, here's the engine, here's the reverser, here's the levers, here's the buttons. I'll stand out here.
Don't crash.
Don't run into anybody. Yeah, don't run into anything.
Don't hit nothing. What was it like? The very first time you operated a locomotive by yourself?
It was probably one of the most exciting things in my life at that time.
Do you remember what kind of locomotive it was at the time?
It was a little one of the SW9 or SW1200 switch engines, and I had about 5 other engines coupled to it, but they didn't have the air cut into them, and that was the only one that had brakes. Was the switch engine I was on, and they said, "Okay, drag these engine out. We're gonna put them on this other track." And when I tell you to stop. So I'm going along, and he says stop, and I put the brakes on, and I skid for another about car and a half. 2 car lengths before I finally actually got stopped.
Yeah, because you were probably barely moving to begin with.
Right. Well, that plus all the weight that was behind me, none of that, I didn't have control of the brakes on the locomotives behind me. So that was a learning experience for me.
That's cool. That is cool. We got to figure out what the romance of railroading is, because people just. I'm telling you, this hobby is so big, nobody has any idea. All right, so when do you feel like you started? Like you say, model railroading never left you. It's in your blood somehow. I don't know why. George, jump in here when you feel like you have something to add to
Well,
it.
it's funny because I know for me one of the biggest things was the noise. All the different sounds and noises was so captivating as a kid. But I mean, it's something different for everybody, and I mean, it could even differ between people that like steam and diesel, because you get different things out of both, right? Like it's a question with 1,000 answers. You know what I mean?
Well, wow, I love that. It's a question with 1,000 answers. That's kind of like the podcast. It's a podcast with 1,000 different directions, different answers.
When I was a kid, it was because the elementary school I was in was right across the street from the railroad tracks of the main line that ran between Tacoma and Seattle. And when I remember being a kid, and a train come by, and everybody go run to the window and go watch the train go by.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, for me, it was my dad and my uncles were involved with the railroad, and I mean, and my dad, one of my uncles was a streetcar operator in Toronto, and of course, I always got to jump on the streetcar. I always got to jump on the streetcar and stand right beside him, and back then he'd even let me, he's with his hand on mine. I'd even get, which of course none of that would be remotely possible today.
There would be a lawsuit in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
That is so true. I wish I could bring my daughter, my wife up and have them ride with me.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I mean, there's. I think we got to the too many rules stage. Okay, so we're going to take a journey through your life, Emory. So you're the Emory Lehman the third, right?
Yes.
Am I saying that right? Is it the third?
Yeah, it's Emory Lehman, Emory Van Lehman the third.
Emory what?
Emory Van Lehman the third.
Van Lehman. So the middle name is Van?
Correct.
I never got to say that.
Well, that makes it so much cooler.
I know. Emory Van Lehman the third. Sounds like Jackie Gleason's character. What was his name? I'm going to have to look that up while we're talking. Something. I'm going to look that up. So, okay. Emory. I never got to say that before, though, George? Am I saying that right? Is it the third?
I believe so.
Emory, yeah.
Emory Van Lehman the third. I love that. Okay, is there a short form for Emory, or is that your name? Is it like Lionel, where it's just like it's Lionel, and don't bother trying to make a short form for it?
When I was a kid, my mom, she let me make a decision. She said, we could either call you EV or Emory. Well, my dad's name, since it's the same as mine, they called him Van. So I was like, you need to call me Emory.
Yeah, good call. I think you made the right decision there, buddy. That's a pretty big life decision to make when you're young.
Right.
Okay, so what did your wife think when you told her you were going on the road anyways and you were going to be off and gone? Because, when you had at first you didn't want to be away from home, and then pretty quickly, within a year, you're away from home.
Well, it was actually, that was my ex-wife. It would have been my ex-wife then. And that's right when all that stuff went on. The process of the divorce and all those other things happened during that time. So that's when I said, I need to go. I want to do something different, and I want to start working the road, work as a conductor.
Okay. So how old were you when you went to Choo Choo U?
Oh man. 20, has it been like 24, 25?
Okay. And, okay. And so then from there, and how long did that take to do that?
Is the whole training program from start to finish as a trainee to a certified conductor was 6 months on the BN. The first 6 weeks they send you to Choo Choo U, which is in Kansas City at Overland Park Community College. You do the 6 weeks there, and then you have to do all your G-Core, all your rules and safety rules and all that stuff. And then once you pass that, then they send you back to your terminal, and then they train you for the remainder of your time. Okay. And then once you finish your 6 weeks, they do a skills assessment, and you qualified conductor, and you mark up and go to work.
Wow. And I don't know if you know this, but our young George the Boy Wonder, he's just on the verge of becoming a full-time conductor with the railroad. He's just been hired. And the only thing is, he's got a couple of there's a couple of
go ahead, that's fine.
Yeah. Couple of small health issues but they've already hired him. Couple of small. He has his blood pressure is a little off, but we've already determined that we don't think it was a problem until he joined the podcast.
or until, and you know what? I'll freely admit it. Or until I made the colossal mistake of having 3 coffees in a 12-hour period prior to my medical.
Yeah.
So that's on me.
Or before you bought a 4-cylinder Cadillac.
I just listened to that podcast yesterday, so yes.
I was listening to
Oh boy.
I was listening to one today, Emory. It's called we did Fans 28, and only the Fans 28 became 3 separate shows. It's just a colossal mess. But I was listening to the wrap-up show of Fans 28, and we were still talking about. I think we'll be talking about that forever. You know what, George? You're a good sport. That's what makes it so much fun. It
reminds.
Go ahead.
It reminds me when I was a kid, or not a kid, but when I was a early or late teens, early 20s person, and I had a Mustang, a Ford Mustang, but I thought it was a super nice car. You know, I really enjoyed it, but it was also a 4-cylinder.
Yeah. Well, and
was it one of the? Sorry, Lionel, not to interject. Was it one of the 4-cylinder Fox bodies from back in the day?
Yes, 1979 Ford Mustang. With the 2.3 liter Pinto motor in it.
Oh my goodness gracious! Don't be admitting that to anybody. They absolutely butchered the Mustang there for a while. Oh yeah,
the Fox bodies were nice. Those ones, like the 79 to 93, were nice cars.
Yeah, what was the one?
They're highly sought after now. Fox bodies are a lot of money now.
Yeah, that's a cool car if you got like a small, like the 283 V8 in it.
Actually, the 302.
Or the
305. They came with a 5-liter, yeah.
But didn't they have a 2-something? Didn't Ford, or was Ford's smallest V8 a 302? It was 283 was Chevy, and
289 was the smallest one.
Yeah, 289. That's right. Yeah, because I had a race car when I was a kid, and we had the 289 in it. Man, we got that thing a humming, though, I'll tell you.
That was one of the original V8s, was the 289.
Yeah, it's the original, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good motor. The 302, the Chevy 302, and the 289 Ford of small V8s, those things were reliable as all get out, those motors. But what year was it that the Mustang was really ugly? Was it before?
You're probably thinking of the Mustang too.
Yeah.
Mustang through the years. Well, there was a really ugly version, either before or after.
The Mustang 2 was the one that immediately preceded the Fox body, and it was the giant flop that never sold anything.
Yeah,
I think it was like 73 to 78 or something like that. 74 or something like that.
Right.
All right, let me take a look here. You know, we should be talking about this too, because he restores Mustangs. Yeah, that's the one. Man, that was ugly. The 74.
Yeah, 74 to 79 was the Mustang too.
What
and
a
that
disaster that was. I don't understand.
It was also a Mercury Capri, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was a Mercury Capri, and it had that. It had a 2.6 liter V6 in it, something like that.
Yeah,
my buddy had one of those, and it was a POS also.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. The Cobra was kind of neat looking, but it doesn't look like a Mustang. It looks like it should have been something else.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mustang POS. Yeah.
Well, then the next, the 05 is when they come out with the new retro body style, and of course my wife had to get one, and we had one until my stepson wrecked it.
Yeah, but I love the Mustang was the one. Well, actually, Mustang and Dodge, both of them got the retro body style spot on. Dodge.
Yeah, you don't like the Camaro, do you?
What's that?
You don't like the Camaro, do you?
I hate it. It's too big. It's not like an original Camaro. It's too big.
No.
It's a piece of Chevy.
Yeah, it's a piece of Chevy. It's like it's full of helium or something. There's a guy in Florida. A guy that lives about 3 doors down from me in Florida, and he bought one, and he had to parade up and down the street with it, and I
hate those people.
Yeah, and I just never got into it. The Camaro. Never did it for me.
If there's any members of the AML Nation who have done that, I'm sorry, but I hate you.
Someday remind me to tell you the story of the neighbor across the street that bought a big fancy, the Mercedes that was the 2-seater with the convertible top. Yeah.
And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say for legal reasons that was a joke.
What?
I don't hate people.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. And one other thing I'll tell you, George, while I'm beating the crap out of you about your 4-cylinder Cadillac, and everybody else is too, my
Yes.
first real vehicle, aside from the fact I had a Volkswagen Bug where we took the engine out of one and put it in the other, that was a pretty sweet ride. But my first real vehicle was I bought my dad's pickup truck.
Right.
A Ford F-100 67 with West Coast mirrors. That was sweet. And but it had a straight 6 in it. And I hated it. I hated the straight 6. I just want, like, why couldn't it have had a 289 in it or something, you know?
Was it the 300 or the 2 or the smaller? I don't know what size that.
Oh, yeah, it was a smaller 6. I could actually stand in the engine bay with my legs straddling the axle. I had twin I-beam suspension. I could actually stand in the engine bay and work on the motor while I was standing inside the engine bay. That's how small the engine was. And I tried to look cool with it, and it just never worked because it was a straight 6.
And that was the one that they put in the Fairmont too, if I remember right. It was like a 202 or 208 or something like that.
Yeah, I was like, I tried to be so cool, and I tried putting mag wheels on it and everything. It just never worked.
I almost bought a 79 F100 one day.
Did it have a V8?
It did.
Well, see, that's okay.
But the problem was I was looking for a 4x4 and it was 2-wheel drive with a bad box. But that was a nice truck. I regret not buying that to this day.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, railroading.
We're getting to know Emory. This is exciting.
Yeah. Which is the best part about this podcast. How did we get on the Mustangs? What was it we were talking about that got us on the Mustangs?
4-cylinder vehicles.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. Once again, my Cadillac creates a problem.
Yeah, once again, exactly. See, that's the problem. It's just not working. All right,
it's not working for me.
So after you get out of, what was the first place you were stationed as a conductor?
I was working out of Seattle or Inner Bay or Balmer, which are all the same, 3 places. And I was working as a conductor out of there. And I also was a switchman. And then I finally had a little bit of seniority. I was able to go down to Tacoma and worked out of Tacoma for a little bit. During my time when I was there, is when they reopened Stampede Pass line. And I was working I tried to stay on the pool job going between Tacoma and Ellensburg, going east and west.
All right. So, and how long after that did you become an engineer?
Well, what actually happened was there was right after the merger. So I hired up pre-merger. So then after the merger in September of whatever it was, 95, I think it was, with the merger with the Santa Fe, they were so short-handed down here where I'm at now. They had a lot of different Santa Fe properties. They were short-handed on people because the Santa Fe didn't do any hiring after the early 80s. They were out of people because of all the traffic that's picked up. So they offered what's called a loan out program, or as some of us railroads call it, mercenary work. I put in to go to different locations as a temporary transfer to work as a mercenary, and I ended up down here in Temple.
And you've been in Temple, since the mid-90s?
Since, 90, it'd be that late, was it September of 95, or no, not 95, 96, September 96.
All right. So, and as you're doing all this, so now we're up to the middle of the 90s. How is the model railroading doing through those early years with the railroad?
There was absolutely none. It was all boxed up, put in the garage.
All right. And after you got to Temple, like, how long have you been, say, active again? You've never been out of the hobby. You've enjoyed it ever since you were 4 or 5 years old. When did you start to get active again in the hobby?
About 2-3 years ago. A very good friend of mine who's also a conductor here. I've known him since he basically hired out here in Temple, because when we come down here as loan outs, they were just starting their first couple conductors classes here in Temple. So they're doing all this hiring, and I met a really good friend of mine, Mike Bourbon. He's been a railroad or other places, but he started he's been in the hobby also for a while, but he started rebuilding a layout about 3 years ago, and I've been hanging out with him since.
So how do model railroaders find each other? Oh, and James Maddern, who works in Anola shops for the Norfolk Southern. Let's not forget him. We got to make a list of all our actual railroaders. if I forgot your name, either post it on the fans page or send us an email, because I want to make sure I get a hold. I remember to list everybody that we know of that's full-time railroaders. Matt Martin. I think we already said his name. Jason Clockey, who lives in Iowa. He's a CN locomotive engineer. Sorry, Jason. So how did you guys find because it always seems like full-time railroaders are concerned about telling other full-time railroaders that they're model railroaders, but yet I'm beginning to get a whole different feel for that. Maybe times have changed or something, but it seems like there's a ton of you guys out there that enjoy the full-time railroading and enjoy the hobby.
Well, it's true, and there's always been a stigmatism of if you're a railroader, then you can't be a model railroader. But where a lot of us, I wouldn't call it closet model railroaders, but we kind of hide out, and I wouldn't say hide out, but we just don't make it very known public in the industry because I don't know, a lot of guys think it's a stigmatism, but you have to have a hobby, and if you have a hobby of something that you enjoy, and model railroading or railroading is really my hobby, and it doesn't matter if it's 1-to-1 scale or HO scale or G scale or SN3 or whatever. I've always enjoyed railroading, so I think that's where it all come from.
Yeah, I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Is your hobby is railroading. You happen to be able to make a living doing it, and you also enjoy it as a pastime. And
yes, and where we, a lot of us meet, or where a few of us at work have actually, quote unquote, found out that we're model railroaders is the local hobby, the local train show here in town that they have every September. And, there's all these people, all these dealers and everybody in there, but you come walking around and you're like, hey, that's Mike. Hey, that's so-and-so. Hey, that's RJ. Hey, that's, there's so many more there than what you would think that actually that enjoy the railroad, and they go to the show to really show off what they do and how much they really enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. I get you. Yeah. So that's probably a good place for, who we almost forgot, George?
Who's that?
Uncle Dave.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Our good friend Dave Abeleys.
Dave Abeleys and his buddy Rich Winiski, who introduced Dave to the podcast. And then one of Dave's guys, Jack Travelino, and that whole gang over there at New Jersey Transit. Those guys are all full-time railroaders too. Man.
We can't forget Jim Lincoln either.
Jim Lincoln. Good call. Holy mackerel, the list is huge. Now I'm positive I've missed somebody. What a great, Emory, it just is so cool that the podcast has given me the opportunity to meet so many interesting people. It just is really cool. And you sound just like as interesting as anybody. So, okay. And you're you like talking about it. Okay. So how did you and Mike stumbled upon each other, and then you got talking, and then somehow you went over to his place and started helping him with his layout, I'm guessing?
Yes. He's been dabbling in the hobby for a long time, and him being single and not having kids and everything else like that he started out in HO about 4 or 5 years ago. Kind of didn't like it, got into F scale or G scale, had a large G scale layout in the building we're in now, but it actually ran outside and came back in type thing, and kind of got tired of dealing with it, and then went back to HO, and now we've built this. It's a very large layout, 3-level. I don't even know the size of the building. It's an L-shaped building. I think it's 20 by 40 by 60, I think.
Holy mackerel.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
20 by, so it's like an L shape.
Uh-huh.
So it's like 20 down one side of the L, and then
if you look at an L backwards, the bottom leg, it'd be the left edge, would be like 20, and then you go down the bottom edge, that'd be like 40, and then you go up, it'd be like 60, and then it go back across the top like 20, and then back down. So
it's
like
huge.
something like that. Yes.
And it's an outbuilding. It's an outbuilding outside his house on property, because
Correct.
In Texas there's no basements.
Correct. And last summer? Yeah, last summer we added on it would be the bottom part of the L. We added on like a 20 by 20 piece to it.
Holy mackerel. Well, now,
and the purpose
Just 'cause you can.
Yeah, just because you can't.
The actual purpose was to actually move his shop so he could actually have some shop space.
Okay, so is this your main layout that you work on? Like, do you have one yourself?
No, I don't have. No.
Yeah, right.
There's.
Yeah. No, but this is perfect for you. You've met Mike. What was his last name?
Bourbon, like whiskey, but bourbon.
Perfect. Good thing Hard Part's not here. He'd be pouring.
Yeah, really, he'd be all over that.
He'd be pouring himself one.
Or 5.
Yeah. Let me ask you an honest question, Emory. You're now, you're becoming a solid member of the AML Nation. So I need you to answer this question honestly, if you can. Would you ever drink box out of a wine, or drink wine out of a box?
I don't know if I drink
box out of
wine.
a wine.
I don't think I drink box out of a wine.
No,
but,
would you ever drink wine out of a box?
Well, I'm not a wine connoisseur, so I can say no.
Yeah.
But my mother, when I was growing up as a child, or as a kid or whatever, my mom would come home and she'd have her box of wine, and that's her first thing. She'd come home every day and pour her a small glass of wine out of her box.
I'm just going to save you some trouble here, Lion. Edit.
Yeah. Nah, I'm not going to edit down. This reminds me of talking to Scott Lister, just a good guy. Not that everybody's a good guy that we talk to, but it seemed very relaxing to talk to Emory.
It really does. There's a lot of really good information coming out right now.
Yeah, a lot, and we haven't even scratched the surface because now we're down to George. We've barely touched on the fact that he's a locomotive engineer. We haven't even got to the job that he has nowadays, and now we found out that him and his buddy Mike are building this massive layout. Is there anybody else, or is it just the two of you?
It's 3 of us. Mark Dixon, who is a good friend of Mike's, he works for the Georgetown Railroad. They're down south of here in Georgetown, which is a small short line railroad that basically loads rock for building rock trains that go wherever they send rock to.
Okay, so not to be confused with Georgetown Loop. This is a different.
No,
okay,
Georgetown, Texas, just north of Austin.
Gotcha.
Round Rock, Georgetown. Just if you look on a map south of here, about 30 miles is Georgetown. And it's a big rock quarry they have there that they load gondolas and send it off as unit trains, anywhere from 60 to 120 car unit trains to places like Houston or out that direction.
Wow. So
yeah.
GREX looks like they're
that's part of their system, but it's actually GRR is what the actual reporting marks are.
George, I'm starting to get to one of those points where I'm kind of like, I don't know what else to ask, because now the more we talk, the more there seems like to ask. Like, we got to find out more about this layout.
Absolutely. I need pictures.
Yeah. Is there anywhere on the internet to see pictures of this?
Unfortunately, no, we don't have anything on it. I have pictures of it on my phone I can send you. I haven't really posted. We don't have. We're not real big into advertising it out to everybody because
Yeah, I know.
It's an investment, and
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
I have pictures of us building it, and granted, right now it's still a lot of bench work, but we do have the upper level or the middle level is operational. There's a 16-track yard with a full 21 stall roundhouse. The 16-track yard, the longest or shortest track can hold like 85 cars. Then it's 3 peninsulas with a lower level. We don't have a helix. We have what we call the long crossover to crossover from the middle level to the lower level. The lower level, we just started on the lower level, got one of the reversing loops in. And then from the middle level, it goes around the 2 peninsulas, which is we're calling the branch line, which goes all the way up the hill. And then off the branch line, there's going to be a logging spur.
All right, so let's ask a good question then. I got a good question. So, George, tell me if this is a good question or not.
Certainly.
It's your job here to keep us under control. So I'm interested. Why do you guys not want to make it public? Are you concerned that people are going to find out and they're just going to, you're going to be kind of overrun, or it's just you're concerned about damage from vandalism, or what? Or just not your thing?
Actually, I think it's not our thing. We're Mike and myself are very introverted.
Okay.
So what friends we do have, we don't have a lot of friends. We have just a lot of close friends.
Right.
And so, we don't want into every person in the not the neighborhood, but all the people. I can't really explain it.
I think I got it. You don't want to have to explain it to people that aren't model railroaders. You don't want to have to explain it to civilians. You guys enjoy the hobby, and you know why you enjoy the hobby, and you know why other model railroaders enjoy the hobby, but you don't want to have to describe or explain it to civilians, because a lot of people that aren't model railroaders would come into the building and go, "Holy smokes, why? I can't believe you guys done this," and blah 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 blah, and that can get tiring.
Right. And I'm more into the electrical side of it. I enjoy doing all the electrical, doing the DCC work, putting decoders and locomotives. Mike's the builder. He loves to build things. He builds, some of the bridges on there are outstanding. Through truss bridges, long, piling bridges, and just all the lumber work and all the stuff that he's done on it. It's just, and granted, it's just right now it's probably 98% bench work. We got a couple pieces that are scenic, but they're actually pieces that we've acquired from other layouts that people have dismantled. We went down to Austin somewhere, and I can't remember the person's name, but this guy had a 2-car garage layout. He passed away, and his wife wanted it removed. So we went down there and spent the day and filled up my cargo trailer with the entire layout, and was able to utilize a couple of the pieces that were on that layout and incorporated them into our layout. Okay.
And do you think Mike would mind if you took a few photos and put them on the fans page?
No, not at all. I'll upload what I got on my phone. I'll send some on, put them on the fans page.
Yeah, because it'll be fun to follow along like we do with everybody, posting on the fans page. And then, if you post it today, early in the spring of 2025, we'll get around to reading it. Well, you know what, George? I was listening to this 3-parter of Fans 28, which was just... So what's coming up, Emory? You'll have heard, by the time you hear yourself, you'll have heard it long ago. But first part is just introductions, 2 hours of introductions. The second part is we actually get around to doing some posts, and we managed to do 5 days. And then in the wrap-up show, part 3, we introduce the world to a young guy named Drew Warrington, a 15-year-old guy who's just in love with the hobby, and really cool guy, and has a YouTube page, right, Drew? Hey, Drew, you got to post on the fans page too. So anyways, we do that, and we managed to do another 2 days worth of, so in 6.5 hours, we did 7 days worth of posts.
I see. Yeah, because I think I'm on Fans 23. I'm in the middle of Fans 23 right now.
Yeah.
So, buddy, if you only knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And I can only tell.
Okay. So, all right. So you guys are built. So, okay, you like the electrical part. So let's not skip over that. So do you feel like that's come from being a computer guy, that you understand the electronics and enjoy that?
Yes, I think that was the whole reason. I think one of the reasons why Mike commandeered me was because of my computer skills, because he doesn't know how to do any of the programming or any of that type of stuff with locomotives. And I just started showing him how to install decoders in his locomotives. And I don't know how many locomotives we have on that layout. I couldn't tell you. I have to look at the list on JMRI, and I know it's not even updated. So there's got to be at least 25 or 30 locomotives on there right now.
Right. And so how did you get interested in the, like, when do you feel like you, was it just in the last 3 years you started working on DCC and stuff, or have you kind of known it was out there for a while? And
well, I knew it was out there back on the BN club, when I was in the BN club. It was just at the horizon of starting to do DCC, and then when I got out of it, I knew about DCC, but the last 1.5, 2 years of seeing of all the strides that they've made with DCC, it's unbelievable what you can do with locomotives. And, back in the days when you had the DC circuits, you could only run 1 or 2 locomotives at a time and had the different blocks and all that type of stuff, the way my dad had our layout set up. But now it's so prototypical. You can build such large consist things together and make them all run together and make it actually almost work like a real railroad. What
system do you guys operate? What's the railroad called? What exactly are you guys modeling?
we don't have a name for it. And actually, me personally, I like to model the BN from the mid 80s up to merger time. Mike is last generation steam, first generation diesel. He's more into the Santa Fe and SP stuff. And
right along there with me.
And then also, I've always been fascinated with, like logging railroad, doing, like shays and those type of things. Cause my family has a cabin up at Mount Rainier in Washington. And ever since I was a kid, the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad has always had, operations up there doing scenic tours and stuff like that with, the different steam locomotives they have up there, the 3 different, geared locomotives they have.
Yeah. And, so are you guys, does the layout have a theme, or you guys are just kind of right now kind of all over everybody gets to run what they want, or does he have some sort of a plan of what's going to eventually be, or everybody just kind of throws their stuff on there and have at it?
I don't think there really is the plan, Mike. I don't think Mike has an actual operations plan or what he wants to do. You know, he kind of chastises me when I run my green locomotives with his first generation Santa Fe stuff, you know, but, and I'm granted, I don't have any cars in the layout, and he's got about 1,500 cars in the layout right now. And they're all, you know, 40s, 50s era box cars and gondolas and all that type of stuff. And it's kind of, he's like, that's not right. You having that BN caboose on the rear end of that train with all that, with that BN power pulling all those ancient box cars and stuff like that. But you know, it's all fun. It's all fun.
And have you guys been like plan on some sort of formal operations eventually, or?
I would like to. I'm really into operations. I like to you know, like local type work. A train goes out to location, does switching, comes back type thing. Mike's more into running big, long trains. His thing is to run a lash up about 4 locomotives and about 60, 70 cars and run them around the layout and watch it run, and maybe go to a station, set out and pick up and, you know, and go that route.
Right. And so eventually though, you guys are probably, do you operate anywhere else?
No, and that's one of the things I'm wanting to get in. Well, I'm wanting to get into is more into operations at other places. And this year or last year was this year, I did join the Operation SIG group to kind of get my name in the hat or get my name out there so people can say, hey, you know, hey, I've got operations down here in Austin, you know, come on down type thing or anything like that. I talked with Chris Atkins and saw him at the train show and talked a little bit about that. I'm not a real big into networking or politicking or anything that, but you know, I enjoy it.
Hey George, how about this? I just had this thought.
What's that?
Yeah, I think the AML Nation affords people like Emory who aren't necessarily into networking, it gives them a built-in network.
I would concur with that.
I just had that thought. I think
That's a good thought.
I think we've built our own network. Emory, I think you're part of a network. I think you're part of the AML Nation is a network.
That's good. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of get on here too, was to become part of this big, huge, gigantuan thing it's becoming.
Exactly. And I'll stick to my statement. I don't care how it got started. I don't care how it exists. All I care about is that I'm part of it. Okay.
And we're here.
And we're having fun with it. And now Emory's part of a network. So how far are you from Dallas, Texas?
Dallas, Temple is basically 2 hours from pretty much everything. 2 to 3 hours from 2.5 hours to Dallas Fort Worth, 2 hours to San Antonio, hour to Austin, 3.5 hours to Houston. Going west, it's about 4 hours to Abilene. 6.5 hours to El Paso.
Whenever I ride that way on my motorcycle on my Harley, and I get I get near in Texas, I always say I think I can make Amarillo by morning.
How'd you do? You kind of have to.
Yeah, well, it's that song, right?
It's tradition.
It's just exactly. I just love saying that. I get somewhere near Texas, and I think I can make Amarillo by morning.
Amarillo by morning, up from San Antonio. Everything that I got is just what I got on. When that sun is high in the Texas sky, I'll be bucking at the county fair. Amarillo by morning, Amarillo, I'll be there.
Oh, yeah. So what you need to do now is, you got to stay in contact with Chris Atkins and Speed Muller, because those guys are operating fools. And I bet you they could get you involved in some sort of operation. I mean, Speed loves to get people involved. Brooks Willig, you got him.
What did for Brooks? Yeah.
Yeah, look what he did for Brooks. Somebody gonna say something?
I can't remember who's that. Who's that out there in San Angelo? I can't remember.
That's Brooks Willig.
Did you?
Yeah, and he got Brooks involved in all kinds of operations. And Speed is a good guy, and Chris is a good guy. So I mean, you get hooked up with those guys, they'll introduce you to it. And then it'll be your job to introduce Mike to it, and away you guys go. Right. That's
Mike's got a few friends. Mike's got a few friends on the inside also from the around the Austin area, but I wouldn't say he's kind of an outcast, but he's like me. He doesn't want to do a lot of. Get 2 or 3 of us together, that's fine. But we're not like, I don't like being in a club.
I get it. I see what you're saying. I know what you're saying. It's like you like the hobby, you love the hobby. You like meeting people in the hobby, but you're cautious of getting involved in clubs and things like that because it's not something you're familiar with at this point. And I think there's a lot of people in the hobby like that. And because, some clubs are great and some are become a pain in the butt. And so you're just, right now, you're feeling your oats and you're taking it as it comes. Is that fair?
So, yeah, that's very fair. Okay. Yes.
And you don't drive 4-cylinder Cadillacs.
That honor is reserved for me. All right.
George, that was rude.
I drive a...
Yeah, what do you drive? What do you drive?
I drive...
Yeah, wait a minute.
I posted a picture on the fan.
Wait a minute. Yeah, if you posted it on the fans page... Well, yeah, you post you're driving... what are you driving? What locomotive are you driving?
Whatever they call me to go to work, put me in.
All right.
I don't have much of a choice.
I'm thinking you're a Ford pickup truck guy.
There's a picture of it, and I posted it back in when we made a little trip in the 1st of June.
All right. Well, we were only up to March. There's a million pictures on the fans page. Thanks, Chris Atkins, for starting that. There's like 12 or 15 posts a day. It's crazy. I should have never, Emory, I'm telling you, I should have never started this podcast. It was a huge mistake. I've created nothing but a pain in the butt for everybody.
No, it's very enjoyable.
Okay, so what are you driving? I didn't see the picture yet in fans.
2014 F-150.
Perfect.
There you go.
Larry edition.
Absolutely, of course. I'm guessing
four-wheel drive, of course.
Yeah. Let me guess. It's not white. There's no way it's white. I'm thinking burgundy.
No, you're right. The first time it is white. It's pearl white.
Oh, pearl white's good. I like pearl white. All right, so let's before we blow through all the time, we got to come back to that question of what is it about railroading? What's the romance of railroading that drives everybody to it? We'll come back to that question because I want to, before we blow through all our time, I want to find out about what you're doing now because lots of times you post on the fans page about you're in a van going from here to there or whatever it is you're doing. So what job do you have with the BNSF now?
Okay, out of Temple, I work basically between Temple and Brownwood, which is west of Temple about 130 miles. And depending on where the train originates, it either, not I would say originate, but gets called in Temple to take it to Brownwood, or it originates it usually originates in Brownwood and I bring it to Temple. So I have to van either direction. So if I take a train from here in Temple, take it to Brownwood, put it in the yard or wherever it needs to be put away at Brownwood, I get in a van and van home. If the train originates in Brownwood, like a rock train or some other manifest train that actually originates in Brownwood, I get on it, or I get in a van, take the van to Brownwood, put the train together at Brownwood, and then bring the train back to Temple.
How long does it take to get to Brownwood by van?
2 hours and 15 minutes.
All right, I see Brownwood. So and how long does it take to run the train back from Brownwood to Temple?
Straight shot, it's 3 hours and 30 minutes.
Okay, and
so that's not too bad.
Yeah,
that's a good day.
But
if you
go ahead.
You got to remember there is traffic out there, so you have to meet other trains or follow other trains. So
of course,
it could be, yeah. It can be a 12-hour day.
And
or
that's the maximum you're allowed to for a shift, right? Is 12 hours.
Correct.
And what happens?
Actually operating a train, but
go ahead.
Actually operating a train, yes, it's 12 hours. But
Yeah.
you can, once you park your train, they can still keep you on duty until you tie up at your tie-up location, which could be, there's been guys that have 18, 20, 24 hours on duty.
Really? So, okay,
Because
explain that. Explain that to me then.
Because the carrier can sometimes forget to call a van or a crew to come relieve you or have other issues out there, and they forget that you're out there and forget to send you home.
What'd you say, the carrier?
Yes.
What is the carrier?
That's what the carrier is, the company I work for, BNSF.
Oh, all right. Wow.
Because I'm also a union member. I'm also our secretary treasurer for our division for the BLET here in town. Our on the BLET, it's our group that we get together is a division, but on the other places it may be your local. So on the BLE, it's our BLET, it's our division. So I'm the secretary treasurer for our division. So all of our contracts and everything else like that, and all our negotiations we do, and all the stuff that we talk about is usually with the carrier.
All right. So the BLET is the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers
and Trainmen.
And Trainmen. Did you know that, George?
Yes.
I did not.
Okay. Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, which covers everybody that works on the train. And so you refer to the BNSF or your employer as the carrier.
Correct.
Yeah, so you got to be careful because there's lots of people that don't know what we're talking about, or nobody knows nobody knows what I'm talking about. But
and the BLET or BLE.
All right, let's be careful. Hang on here, guys. We keep talking over each other for some reason. Is there do you feel like there's a delay, or are we just talking over top of each other?
I think there's a delay.
I think there is a delay. Is there not?
I think there might actually be a delay.
Yeah, all right. So you know what? We're going to stop this. Or actually, you just hang up. George and I will talk amongst ourselves and come back on again, and that'll fix the delay. Just drop out and refresh again and come back in, and that'll fix the delay, I'm pretty sure. And in the meantime, George and I will talk amongst ourselves. Are you back, Emory?
I think I'm back. Am I back?
That was fast.
He's back.
That was fast.
Yeah. What is my other hobby?
That's true.
Computers, yeah. Yeah. Well, I knew what I was going to ask you before. Okay. So we had a bit of a delay there, so it was kind of choppy what we were talking about. So you are the secretary treasurer of your division of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen.
Yes. And
you guys refer to your each. So would there be other in your division? Is there other guys in the union working for other railroads?
Not in our division, no.
Okay. So you guys are all just, well, now why do you guys refer to the BNSF as your carrier and not just the BNSF?
Honestly, I do not know. That's what the national does, and also our general chairman, which is the one their general committee, which is right ahead of us. They've always called the railroads the carrier.
Okay.
So I think it's the same way with the airline pilots and the other union members that are in the transportation department call their employer the carrier.
I don't think I've ever heard. And our buddy Spoon is a union guy, with the Canadian National. I don't think I've ever heard him refer to the Canadian National as the carrier. So we're going to have to clarify that.
I have heard it mentioned before, but I think I've heard it more to do with the airlines than I've heard it with the railroad. But
all right,
it's the same idea.
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but the airline industry actually falls under the same rules and regulations as we do under the Railway Labor Act.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. How did you find that out?
I went in one of the hotels we used to stay at in Houston when I used to work the jobs going to Houston. A lot of the pilots and flight attendants were there, and they knew we were there, so we always talked about what they do and don't do and how their contracts and stuff work, and they wanted to know why they fall under the Railway Labor Act for negotiations and whatnot, and that's where it came from.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. So you've got 26 years in with the railroad. So is this Brownwood job, Temple to Brownwood? Is this a pretty good job? Like, is this a high seniority job?
Yes, it is a high seniority job for an engineer in Temple because we only have like the extra board and then what we call the super pool and then a few yard jobs and then this what we call short pool service or that I'm in are the only like four quote unquote jobs we have in Temple for engineers.
Did you say 4?
But it's not actually number of 4, actual 4 jobs. It's actually 4 different pools.
Okay. All right. Okay. And
Like, makes sense.
Yeah. And
we have like we have 2 pools and then an extra board and then a few yard jobs.
Right. And you came to Temple in the mid 90s and you've been there ever since. And it's not a big yard or a big terminus.
It actually is.
Oh,
We have the yard in Temple is, if you Google map it, you can see it. It's right middle of town and it's a pretty big yard. We got a roundhouse. What kind of drew me to Temple was when I was doing my paperwork for the loan out process. I was talking to an old head back home and he said, what you need to do is go in that trainmaster's office and go look at that system map and kind of see where all these different places are that they're offering loan out packages to and see where you want to go. So I looked on the map and it had all these lines coming like from Fort Worth and from out west and coming up from Houston and coming up from the south that go right into Temple. Temple's like right in the middle. And I was like, that's got to be a pretty big place because of the amount of the track that goes to and from through there. And there is actually a pretty good size yard.
yeah, there's a huge yard. You're right. I'm looking at it now.
And there's on the south side there's that big Y in downtown and it goes, to the west towards Brownwood. It goes to the southeast towards Houston, to the north towards Fort Worth. And then we also picked up with the trackage rights to work on the UP. So places like we can go all the way to Eagle Pass through going south of town and whatnot.
Wow. And so this Brownwood job's a good job because it's steady. The hours aren't necessarily steady, but you know what you're doing and coming, that's the job you got.
Right. I know the reason why I'm really on this job is because I know where I'm going to be when I tie up. I'm going to be at home when I get off work. I'm not going to end up staying in a hotel.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
There's a decent amount of certainty with the job that you're on.
Correct. Yeah. I know I'm going to either work to Brownwood or work from Brownwood, basically.
Okay. Yeah. So the deal is every night you're in your own bed in your own house because every day you either jump in the van, ride out to Brownwood to pick up the train, or vice versa. You're in Temple and you take the train out to Brownwood.
Right. And it's usually not day. It's usually night.
Oh, yeah?
Most of the jobs for some reason on this end are, they work nights. Daylights are far and few to be seen.
Okay. And would you work like 5 days and then you have a couple off, or how does it work?
I'm just basically on call. So, you look at the magic computer box that the company that we have access to. You can kind of look and see what trains are running and what time they're going to run them, and kind of plan your business around it.
Right.
Me being the only one on the board because we don't have enough traffic because our jobs are dictated by the number of trains we run, and they only run probably 5-6 trains, maybe 6 trains at the most a week on this board in 7 days. Then that's what I usually work.
Okay. And then you get a couple, you must get, like, what kind of time off do you get?
Anywhere from 40, 50 hours to 12 hours.
Right. Okay. And what kind of, we got way back. I'm going to go back to Mike's layout. I wanted to ask you guys, what kind of operating system do you have on Mike's layout?
Our DCC system we're running is Easy DCC.
Oh, really?
Because that was what he originally used when he first started, and it was because back then it was one of the very, very first wireless systems.
Yeah,
and he's been using it ever since.
And so has he been around Temple for years and years, like you have? Then
he grew up in Georgetown, which is just south of Temple, so that's where he grew up. He spent some time in the military, just like I did. I spent a little time in the military myself. So,
we never even touched on that. Man, we're gonna have to. You're filling in we got to fill in the blanks. There's like So what's your favorite locomotive to run? Do you have a favorite type of locomotive that you run?
If I could, it'd be an SD40-2, but we don't. All those have been put into yard service, and they've turned them into junk.
Every locomotive engineer I ever talked to loves the SD40-2. Oh, The other guy is Tim Garland, who works in Norfolk Southern and around the Atlanta area. George, there's another one.
And what about Todd Arnett?
And Todd Arnett. No, he doesn't work for the railroad.
Doesn't he? I thought he was a mechanic.
No, he's a draftsman.
Who's the guy that's we do have somebody in the AML Nation who's a heavy mechanic for NS, I thought.
Well, James Mattern. He's an electric.
Oh, sorry. Yes, James Mattern. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm never going to live that one down. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, yeah, you're never going to live that down.
That's okay. Just chalk it up there with the four-cylinder caddy.
Todd Arnett is friends with Todd Gordon, who was the former crew chief for Joey Logano in NASCAR. And now I think he's Dave Blaney's crew chief. And Todd Arnett's trying to talk him into letting me try to qualify for the Daytona 500.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. That's just my... And, well, at the same time, Tony Cook, who has very limited interaction with Menards because of his Model Railroad News, being the Model Railroad News editor, and he does deal with Menards because of their train stuff, and John Menard, the owner of Menards, as a model train guy, he's trying to talk him into letting me try to qualify for the Indy 500.
That's all right.
Yeah. So far,
okay.
I'll have to come see you.
Yeah, so far, none of them have had much luck, but, I keep hoping.
Oh, you never know. Let me know if it happens one day.
Yeah, exactly.
I got faith in you.
I know.
I got faith in them.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right. So this, let's make sure we clear up all the details about this job you have because you posted. So is it the same guy that drives you out in the van there and back?
No. The company has a carrier. Let me put it this way: the carrier has a contract through a company called Halcon, which is out of Canada, and they haul us back and forth. And they have it's just kind of like the railroad. Their drivers are on call also, and when they
right.
when the carrier needs a van, they call Halcon, and Halcon sends a van and brings us wherever we need to go.
Halcon. I bet I know what they did before they were hauling train guys around. Halcon.
Con. Yeah, it's a con, all right.
So is that a drag having to ride in a van every time, or you're used to it now?
I'm used to it. It's downtime, and 99% of the time I'm usually my eyes are closed and listening to either the podcast or some good music.
Right. Okay.
And since it is working nights, I usually am taking a pretty good 2-hour nap.
All right, I found it here. Halcon Transportation is a corporation, is a leading provider of transportation and maintenance services for private transit sectors. And you say, it is. It's in Toronto at 3280 Bloor Street West. What the heck is a Canadian corporation doing hauling your butt all over Texas? That's crazy.
It's another
cool.
contractor that. It's another contractor that the carrier has employed.
Yeah, I know. But you would think that they could find somebody in the lower 48 that could drive a van.
Well, we did. We had a van company. We did have a van company. It was called Ritzenberger.
Ritzenberger.
And
yeah.
Ritzenberger was purchased by Halcon.
Oh, okay. Well, look at that. And of course, not unlike the AML Nation, we're in the process of purchasing every podcast on the planet as well. So two Canadian conglomerates. I wonder if Halcon has a nation. I bet you they don't.
I think we're pretty special that way. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that AML is unique in every aspect.
So, George, because you're about to start on your full-time railroading career, do you have any questions for Emory?
Man, I could think of so many potential ones. Like, I guess, I don't know if it works the same way with BNSF that it does with CN, but I know at CN, you build seniority at whatever terminal you're based at, not at the company as a whole. So, I mean, did you find that going to new terminals was difficult because you had to start from scratch again, or did you find it was a pretty easy transition?
For me, it was pretty easy, but it was really weird for me was going from the BN to the Santa Fe because this was pre-merger stuff, or post-merger, after merger, and everybody's still set in their ways. Railroading is railroading. You're still going to move cars. You're still going to have locomotives. You're still going to line switches. You're still going to have rules and regulations. All that stuff is pretty much the same across the system. It's just how people do things, how they signal, how they talk on the radio. Those type of things are different by region.
Right. It makes sense.
And do you have any tips for a guy that's just starting out in railroading, Emory?
Keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, I hear that.
That's something I'd like to. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, because I have a little story, but back when I was a hostler, or actually a laborer in the roundhouse in Seattle, brand new, and I was walking across a set of tracks to go service some power that's on the service track. There was like 3 tracks I had to walk across, and granted, it's a walkway and everything else, but I wasn't paying much attention. There was a guy right behind me, and there was a consistent power moving, not the first track, but the second track over. Excuse me, and I didn't turn to look, and that guy behind me saw that I didn't turn to look, and that he grabbed me by the back of my shirt and pulled me back as that consist went right by me.
Oh, macro.
That's always fun.
So yeah. So that's one of the things I learned, and I always do. It doesn't matter if I'm crossing the tracks at home, or not at home, but in my car or at work. I'm always looking both directions multiple times to make sure that there's nothing coming or going.
Yeah, because you don't have much of a chance with that. So, I've noticed this when I talk to Clem and Spoon and Adam. Like, there's a real pride to being a railroader, isn't there?
Yes, there is, and I wish the carrier would understand that.
Not BNSF. That's you're working for the BNSF, the carrier.
Yes, sir.
And they don't.
Yes.
You feel like they don't understand it. Well, I think every union guy on the planet feels like that. And why is it? What do you feel like they don't understand? Or like, what is it you'd like to see done differently that would make you feel better? You can't say.
I can't say.
Okay.
I just wish they would give us the respect that we're due, because we're the metal where it meets the rail.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that move the stuff from point A to point B.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I've got a question then on that subject, because I've heard through the grapevine from other railroaders that BNSF actually, outfits their guys and outfits their equipment pretty well as far as like creature comforts and stuff go. So is it more to do with that, or is it more to do with like scheduling, or just, I know that's a very specific question, and if you can't answer, like, that's so totally fine, but it's interesting, what kind of happens when you hear things through like a broken telephone sort of deal.
When yes, we have probably the best equipment out there, and I do enjoy the locomotives we operate. They are clean. They are creature comforts, comfortable. It's just all the other stuff that we have to deal with as a railroader.
Right.
Being under the microscope, we're the only, I hate saying it this way, but we're the only craft out there that's held at 100%. If we make one little minor mistake, we're fixing to get called on the carpet. And I get it. It's big equipment. It's safety. It's everything else. But, they've trained us. We have, people like us that have been here forever and a day. I wouldn't say forever and a day, but 25, 26 years, 15, 20 years. We know how to do this. Just let us do our job. Let us go from point A to point B in a timely manner. We'll save all the fuel we want. We'll get your product from one end of the railroad to the other, and just let us railroad.
Makes sense.
They've taken the railroading out of railroading.
Yeah, they've taken a lot out of stuff.
So do you find that in that way, do you find that's what helps, drive your modeling, is you find a lot of solace in being able to railroad the way you want to railroad kind of deal?
Yeah, most definitely. If I want to run I want to run fast, or I want to run slow, or I don't have to, I don't know how to explain it, but yes.
You're not answering to anybody but yourself, really, is what it is, right?
Right. Well, yes and no. Yeah, it's myself and my conductor out there. We're the ones doing the work. But now with all the data that they collect from us off the locomotives, if you set too much air, or you go into dynamic brakes too fast, or you're supposed to be going 42 miles or 40 miles an hour and you're going 42 miles an hour, those type of things, that's what I mean. Like, when you're modeling, you're not worrying about any of that. You're answering to nobody but yourself. Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And you must find that really hard, though, just what all those things you were just saying about the new world, where, like you say, if you're supposed to be going 40 and you're going 42, and like you say, there's you're not incapable. So at some point you're kind of like, all right, I was going 2 or 3 miles an hour faster than I was supposed to be. Like, I know what I'm doing here.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know how to explain it. I get it. It's the new leadership. They want to, I get it. It's all about money, saving money. There's the two most expensive things the carrier has right now is employees and fuel. So they're trying to cut back on what they can money wise. And we in the trenches, we see it at, where we see they should probably make the changes. We can't, I don't want to explain that, but we see where the changes should be made, and they're not made at those locations.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Are you, Spoon always says he waves to people.
Oh yeah.
Are you a waver?
Oh yeah. And it's one of the things I always tell my conductors, if there's a little kid on the side of the road and he's down, he's waving, I said, you better wave at him, because if you don't wave at him now, when they get older, they'll throw rocks at you.
Yeah.
Wow. I like that. Man,
that's a good philosophy.
Does that ever make sense? Holy mackerel. Good idea. Good thinking. Did you learn that from somebody else, or did you come up with that one yourself? I love that.
I came up with myself pretty much.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know what? That's a great point. If you don't, because some little kids standing, whatever, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, standing there wanting to wave to the guy that's operating the big machine, and they don't wave back. You're right. It could lead to other things. Good point. Wow.
They would feel ignored.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah. And, give them a little toot,
Yeah. Well, if you see a bigger kid that kind of a pasty white guy from Canada, would you give me a little toot as well?
Oh, most definitely. I'd probably whistle your ears off like I do everybody else.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if it's 3:00 in the morning or 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm going to whistle through that road crossing the same way every day.
Yeah, exactly. I got there's a short line around here, and I've been able to ride with them a couple of times. And I mean, the one way I heard railroading described was hours of boredom punctuated by moments of terror. Is that?
It can be, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
You're sitting. You sit a lot. You are sitting in a chair, monitoring computer screens. Your mind is, as an engineer, mind is always going, because you're thinking ahead of you, what's ahead of you, what's behind, what's going on behind you, and planning your business that way.
Yeah. So, are most of the trains you haul from Brownwood? Is it mixed freight, or what is Brownwood? Like, why Brownwood? Is that a terminal kind of place, or?
It used to be a terminal, and they used to be a division point at one time, but now there's just a short line railroad that works there, and we interchange with that. We have what's called a road switcher there, which they switch the yard, but it's also a place for westbound mainline traffic trains to pick up and set out and swap, what we call block swap. So stuff that's going west, far west, say past like Amarillo, California, stuff like that, they'll block it there in that yard, and then the westbound train will pick that stuff up and then take it west. And then all the little local stuff that the short line has there in Brownwood, they have a little city job that goes up and switches all the little industries in Brownwood. But also our road switcher goes out to San Angelo Junction, which is 25 miles west of Brownwood, which then interchanges with the San Angelo, whatever the railroad that works towards San Angelo. Okay. So they bring that traffic back and forth. Have
you noticed that is it my imagination, or are there more and more short lines popping up all the time? Like, there was a stretch there where railroads were kind of being abandoned and everything, and now it seems like we've gone full circle and we're back to, like, there seems like in every friggin' town now there's a small railroad. There's got to be like hundreds or maybe even thousands of small short line railroads all around North America now.
I believe so, yes. And I think what it is because the larger carriers, all they want to do, they don't want to switch. They don't want to have to switch cars, set out cars, spot cars, those type of things. All they want to do is haul that stuff from one place to another place and hand it off to somebody else to switch it.
Yeah. So they want full size trains. So where's so you say westbound. So is there another line that comes into Brownwood that's heading west?
Well, yeah, it's the line that actually goes from Temple, goes all the way to Sweetwater, to Slayton, to Amarillo, and Brownwood's kind of in the middle between Sweetwater, which is where our pool jobs that work out of Temple work, to Sweetwater, Fort Worth, Silsbee, which is just north of Beaumont, and Houston. And so the Brownwood is in between Sweetwater and Temple. So, but we also run out of Brownwood is loaded rock trains. 60, 80, 100 car loaded rock trains.
Oh, okay. Is that, yeah, like Brownwood's got a fair sized yard too, eh?
Yes. And right now we've got a bunch of storage cars out there, but we do, and then we also do interchange with the Fort Worth and Western there.
And of course, another short line.
Another short line.
Interesting.
The numbers just keep climbing, man.
I know.
And then if you go east towards Temple or west out of Temple, you got Fort Hood, and we have a lot of traffic that we service at Fort Hood, running military trains, empty or loaded military trains in and out of there. And then also at one time, the railroad's defunct now, went out of business, but in Lomita, which is about 60 miles west of Temple, basically between Brownwood and Temple, there was a little short line there that worked south out of Lomita down to, I can't remember the name of the little town, but there was a sand plant out there where they used to load sand for fracking and also making glass.
Wow. And we haven't mentioned your wife yet on here. What's her name?
My wife is Doris.
Dolores?
Doris.
Hey, Doris. Say hi to Doris, or else she'll be mad.
That's pretty cool. You don't hear Doris getting thrown around too much anymore.
And say hi to her, or else she's going to be mad that you didn't mention her name.
She's actually in bed asleep because she's got to go to work tomorrow.
Well, I don't mean right now, but she's probably going to listen to this. People do
maybe
listen.
Right this second.
People do listen to this, Emory.
Hello, my lovely wife, Doris.
Yeah. Hi, Doris. Hello, Emory's lovely wife, Doris. This was a lot of fun. You're an easy guy to talk to. It was a lot of fun. And I mean, how cool is it to hear about this gigantic layout you guys are building? You guys I
want to know more about this.
You guys are going to end up. You guys got to start.
We can visit.
Yeah.
We can visit many times about all this. And like I said, you're just scratching the surface of my career and my life. And this is my career. And unfortunately, it is my life. So, I enjoy it.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's something I wanted to say is as much as times have changed and it can be frustrating dealing with, the company and all that, but you really, really enjoy being a railroader in all aspects, which is really cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that picture you posted. Remember there, I don't know, a few months ago, I asked you if I could use a picture you posted of a brand new locomotive you were driving.
Oh, right. Uh-huh.
What was that? What locomotive was that?
That was one of them GEs. I don't know all of the nomenclatures for them, but it was probably a C44-9 or one of the new Evolution series. I can't remember the number on it, but it's one of the new GEs.
Well, do you kind of need to know, like when you jump on an EMD or an GE, like is it they kind of all the same, or do you kind of need to know which class of engine you're jumping onto, or is it just kind
now
of
with the stuff?
Push the button and
with
go.
The stuff that we have now, they're all pretty much the same. But I do know the difference between a GE, and I do know the difference between GE and an EMD, even the older style GEs and the older style EMDs. But the console is pretty much laid out the same. You still have the throttle, you still have a reverser, you still have the whistle, you still have the bell, you still have the independent brake, you have the automatic brake valve. You still have this kind of the same computer screens. They're all pretty much laid out the same. Yeah. So all the gauges, they're all the same that way, but actually polling wise, if me personally, because I'm old school, I'd rather have 5 SD40-2s than 3 of the newer AC powered GEs or the AC power EMDs.
Okay. Can you explain to us why that would be? That'd be kind of cool if you could.
To me, it's a better pulling locomotive. Granted, if I was the newer power, if I'd rather have any of the newer power, I'd rather have an EMD like a SD70 or SD70 Mac, because you can bog those things down to 0.1 mile an hour and they'll keep pulling. A GE, you can't do that. A GE will overheat. The traction motors will eventually overheat and it'll start dropping its load.
Huh. That's cool. That's cool to know, George?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, and it's funny because that kind of mentality seems to be pretty universal across the board. If you ask most of the guys who are working right now, I think that their first choice is always going to be the older stuff, which makes sense. I mean, it was so reliable.
Well, walking away, the SD40-2 is the universal favorite of most locomotive engineers.
Absolutely.
And my thing is also the cab layout. The older SD40-2, the Spartan cab or whatever you want to call it. I love that layout because I'm left-handed. So the controls are on my left hand. I can be looking out that window. There's a heater box right there in front of that window. You put your feet up on that heater box. You crank that chair back just right, and you can just run it with my left hand going down the railroad.
Yeah. Yeah. relaxed, which makes you more observant and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus with 5 SD40-2s, you got more tractive effort wheel wise than you do with three of the newer power.
Yeah, that makes sense too. This has been fun.
A lot of guys say not to detract from what you were saying, Lionel, but I was going to say a lot of the guys prefer the old control stands too. That a lot of guys don't like the new desktops.
Yeah, because you're hunched over it.
Yeah, exactly.
You sit up there and you're hunched over it. That's one thing I do have to say that's nice about the new GEs is they've set up the newer control stand with the to your left, and you can actually it's more comfortable for me.
Cool. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about? I mean, I know there's lots of stuff to talk about.
Oh, there's lots of stuff, but not right off the top of my head exactly, no.
What's your favorite DCC decoder?
Tsunami 2 or Tsunami.
Okay.
I've tried the ESUs, and I do not like the ESUs, and everything we have is Tsunami, and I enjoy them. They have everything we like, and they're easy to program. They're easy to operate.
And their soundtracks.
And everything we have has sound in them.
And our buddy George the goalie, George Bogatuk. George Bogatuk is going to be.
I want to pick on his brain so bad with his knowledge of what he had of their product, because there's so many things I would like to really, really understand how that stuff works.
I'm sure I could arrange that for you. Would you like to talk to him on a phone call?
I've emailed him a couple times, and we've back and forth a little bit, but I haven't really. I want him to sit right here next to me while we're working on Mike's layout and explain to me how to set this locomotive up to do X, Y, Z.
Okay, well then you got to invite him down to Temple. Is there any hobby shops in Temple, or
no? The closest hobby shop we have is down in Austin, and I can't even remember the name of it, and I was not impressed with it.
Okay, you know what we need to do with Emory, don't you, George?
I do.
Yeah, you know how we can find out more about him.
I know where that's going.
That's right. Would you like to do the Kelly questions next?
Sure, why not?
All right. The Kelly questions, your version of the Kelly questions you probably won't hear them till like 2020.
2022.
Yeah, this whole thing was just state. If you were going to have a podcast, you got to have somebody other than me doing it, because it's like it's completely out of control now, and I've lost complete control of the whole thing. All right, so that's it. We're going to stop this, and then we're going to move on to the Kelly questions, and hopefully people will write in with questions about stuff they want to know from you, and we can
yes, I'd be more than happy to talk about what railroading around this area, Central Texas area. I know a little bit of history, but I've got a couple good friends that know a lot of history of the railroad around here. My big thing is Pacific Northwest. I love the Pacific Northwest. That's where I grew up. I know a lot about the railroads back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s in the Pacific Northwest area.
Make sure
we got to put you in touch with Chris Hadkins for sure.
Yeah. So have you make sure you post pictures of what you guys are doing on the fans page.
I will do that.
If Mike doesn't mind. I mean, you don't have.
No, he does not.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. George, can you give out our email address?
Certainly. If you want to contact us by the medium of email, you can write to us at modellerslife@gmail.com. That's modeler with one L, like Lehman, and not two L's, like Lionel.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That works. Good thing your first name isn't Lionel, or your dad and your grandfather's name wasn't Lionel. Lionel Lehman. Or one L like Temple.
One L like Temple, yeah.
One L. No. There you go.
One L like Temple, not two L's like Brownville.
Not two L's like Amarillo.
Brownville. Amarillo.
Brown. What's it called? Brownwood.
Brownwood.
I'm sure there's a Brownville somewhere in Texas.
Yes, there's a Brown.
And Amarillo. That would have been perfect. George, I think I can make Amarillo by morning.
Yeah. Let me know if you get there.
Yeah. And another thing we need. Were you going to say something, Emory?
Oh, it's only 6 hours to Amarillo from here.
There you go. So yeah, you could make it by morning.
And then some.
So another thing we want to tell everybody is that we have a website. It's a Modeler's Life. And if you go to modellerslife.com, you're going to see all sorts of things about the podcast there. There might even be pictures up there about the Jenkins. that's a contest we have where people will know about that. Jenkins is take a photo of yourself trying to replicate the look of one Martin Jenkins who lives in Brisbane, Australia. What would we call that look?
Oh, that's a good question. I was going to say like distressed.
Distressed.
Disgruntled.
Distressed, yeah. The distressed look of Martin Jenkins.
Just like just an ever so like slightly look of like distress upon Martin's face. It's kind of like,
Yeah, he seems so impressed that he has a left hand with 5 fingers. And the other thing we want to tell you about is that if you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, if you go to that website, these guys are located in Independence. Emory, where do you order your model railroad stuff from?
Everywhere.
We ought to try these guys, Midwest Model Railroad.
I have purchased a few things from them.
Yeah, they seem. That's my buddy Stephen Atwell and his dad Gary. They're doing a really bang up job, and they're in Independence, Missouri. And all your AML swag, your merch, is on their website. All you got to do is go to Midwest Model Railroad, midwestmodelrr.com. And in the navigation bar, you just click on the AML, and boom, it's a world of wonderment of AML merch right there.
And don't forget, if you go to our website, you want to send us an email, you can also click on the mailboy's face.
That's right. We were getting to that. Yes, exactly. If you didn't get the address and you want to send us an email, if you just go to our page and find the picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state, you click on that picture, you won't have to know the address. It'll all be done for you, and all you got to do is type your message. I think we pretty much covered it all at this point.
Oh, and we have a Patreon.
Oh yeah, and yeah, if you enjoy this and you want more, you can go. There's another link on our page, and you just click on that, and it's the Patreon, our Patreon page. So every Monday we have a free show, but every Tuesday for 16 cents a day. Unless it's February, which is only 28 days, and then it's about 18 cents. Every Tuesday we have another show, and which our very own Kaylee Zhang calls the Antics Channel, which I think is probably a very apropos description.
I believe it is appropriate. That's the word I would use.
Yeah, it's appropriate. It's
apropos.
Yeah,
and it gives you access to the weekly AML Zoom meeting.
Yes, and
where you can meet fine fellows like Emory Lehman.
Yeah, you were there and that's that is going great guns. I think last Wednesday, I think we had like 50 people at one point or another passing through there. You know, people come for an hour or two, and then they go. I think all told, we must have had 40, 50 people on that thing. So that was great, and you meet all the AMLers from all around the world, which is really cool. Okay, that I think we've covered everything now. That's why we don't want sponsors, because then we'd have to talk about some manufacturer. I've had a couple manufacturers approach me, and so far none of them seem to want to go for $5,000 a show. So.
we are gracious, but we do just fine.
Yeah, we're gracious, but we do just fine. Emory, are you ready for the end?
I believe so. Yes.
Well, Emory, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.